getting the word out to work with clients. I work almost primarily with bariatric clients in my private practice. And they are like the best clients to work with because they're kind of me. It's kind of funny. People always say in therapy, you end up working with people that are a reflection of yourself. I was like, I don't think I'm going to work with a whole bunch of people that are a reflection of myself.
Oh, you legit did. Legit.
No, even in the other things that I work with, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's kind of me too. But so I work with clients that are in all areas, preparing for bariatric surgery, already had bariatric surgery, regain, revision, pregnancy after bariatric surgery, infertility after continued infertility post-bariatric, because I have another certificate that's surrounding perinatal and infertility.
That would be tough.
Guess what, guys?
We're not doctors.
No, we are not.
If you're going to be making any major medical decisions, please consult your doctor.
That includes diets, exercise, medications, and surgery.
We love you guys.
And we want you to continue to be in our OSLP family forever.
So be careful and consult your doctors. We all need our vitamins after surgery, regardless of what you think.
Yes.
It's a must.
Yes. So why not choose the easiest and the best tasting in the community?
Seriously, it's ProCare, guys. ProCare is so delicious. I use their chewable for over a year. That's how I know.
Yes. And I love their capsules.
Yes.
Love them. They're once a day. I take them at night. Easy peasy. And my labs are fantastic.
Yeah, our labs are great. And I've actually switched to the capsules and I take those at night now. So if you guys need your iron, they have them with iron and they have them iron free. They even have calcium chews.
Yes, the calcium chews, perfect. They have mocktail ones, chocolate. They have also some caramel and a cinnamon roll.
They're freaking delicious. So go over to procarenow.com and use our code OSLP to save some money.
Prepping and measuring your food post-op is a beast all in itself. But Portion Perfection has actually made it super, super simple. They have bowls, plates, and even a lunch bag called the Kit and Carry where you can have all of the system ready to go.
Yeah, we love carrying that thing around with us. It's so much easier to pack your lunch, your snacks, especially when you're on a road trip. That thing is a lifesaver.
Yes.
So if you want to get these things to help your journey, just go over to portionperfection.com and use our code 15OSL pod. And again, that's 15OSL pod. And you can also go over to our Amazon storefront to pick out any of those that you would like to use.
While we were in Florida, we got to visit one of our favorite bariatric surgeons, Dr. Donald Fridley at Surgical Associates of Bayonet Point. And when we say that they are patient focused, they are patient freaking focused. They tailor make all their plans to the unique needs of each patient.
It's an in-body scanner.
We both got to use it.
We both got to use it. And you get to do it pre-op and post-op. So that way you can see all the differences and all the changes that happen. And he's also one of the surgeons that does his surgery with robotics. And we got to play with that
We
too.
did.
So we were
so cool.
We were so excited. And we want you to have such a special care that they give. So go over to sabpweightloss.com right now.
Or give their office a call at 727-819-9107.
That's right. So, and tell them that the OSLP girls sent you and they're going to take great care of you.
Yeah. All know how difficult post-op life can be.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking hard, guys.
Yes. And so a way to make it a little bit easier is by joining the Tribe membership program. It has been created by a registered dietitian. She's actually the sleeve dietitian on Instagram. Her name is Jamie. And she's created this whole membership program just to support us.
Yeah, like we've had her on the podcast. We love her to freaking death. And then two, like she has full experts in their field that help you. And they've had bariatric surgery, almost every one of them.
Yes.
And the sleep dietitian is freaking smart because she has almost a support group every single day, guys.
Yes.
You're going to get an email. It's going to tell you which ones are for today. And you can just sign up and hang out with people that are just like you. And I've even used the journal prompts. I'm into journaling, and that was way helpful to just go somewhere that can help you and just get your mind going.
Yes.
So if you need this kind of support, which a lot of us do, go to her website and use our code OSLP at checkout to get your discount.
Welcome back, OSLP family.
Welcome, welcome.
You are listening to our Sleep Life podcast, and this is Kelly.
This is Mel.
And this is our second recording of the day. So if I'm a little stuttery, just
That's why.
don't look at it. Just keep moving on.
Just keep moving.
We want to shout out to everybody out there that we have an award show coming up. It is September 30th. All of the nominees have been notified. They're in, they're calculated, they're notified. So if you are listening to this, go check your request folder.
Yeah. And TikToks are assholes. So you really have to go friend us first. And then we can send you a message on some of those. It's really weird.
Even Instagram is starting to do this.
Oh, please stop.
I am telling you what. So there is actually somebody out there, RNY Chris.
Yes.
I cannot get a hold of him. They will not notify him that I have messaged him.
Oh my God.
And I cannot find an email, so I can't even email him. So if you are friends with RNY Chris and you nominated him, please tell him to get a hold of us because it's coming down to the point where I'm going to have to move on to the next person if I can't get a hold of you. And I don't want to have to do that.
But she will.
I will. I will do it. I'm a stickler for this. Anyways, September 30th, Washington, D.C. Go to jbyawards.com. I said it right.
Yep.
To get all of your ticket information, your hotel information. There is stuff all weekend long.
There's so much to do.
Thursday through Sunday.
What's great is that we are going to be doing a interview today, and that person is going to also be at the JBY Awards as well.
She is.
So it's pretty fucking cool. So this is all about you guys. So you guys nominated, you guys chose the people. Now you guys are going to get to vote, and then you're going to get to watch it either live streamed or in person.
Yes.
We want you in person because there's a lot of engagement that's happening this year, like on the floor. Engagement might be happening. So,
yes, Mel is very excited about this. If you cannot tell,
I mean, last year I got to do 6 wardrobe changes. Just think of the things that I get to do this year, guys.
You would think that it was my idea to change that much. It was not. I said 3.
The non-girly one was like, I want 6.
6
and
outfit changes.
I wanted 2 too.
And I wanted 2 too.
And I got it.
And she got it. And then this year also, we are having an after party. It is going to be at the theater that the show is at.
Correct.
We are going to have a DJ. We are going to have a photo booth. We are going to have a dance floor. And it is catered. It is catered.
You will get to eat.
You will get to eat this year. So make sure you are getting those tickets because as soon as they are gone, they are gone. There is nothing we can do about it. But for those of you that cannot make it, we do have the live stream option, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you guys wanted to get a discount, just become one of our patrons. So it's patreon.com/OSLP. And if you are in the Benchy tier or higher, you will get a discount to the JBY show.
Yep.
And you also get a free brunch with us on the rooftop of the Eaton on Sunday.
Yep.
And if the hotel changes, we'll let you know. But for right now, it's at the Eaton.
Yes.
And it's going to be freaking amazing. And you don't have to pay for it. We're taking care of that bill because how much you guys support us and we love you. So go become a patron right freaking now. And then of course, go to our website. It's oursleeplifepodcast.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. You're going to get a free ebook and then they get the news blast of all the things that we're doing behind the scenes.
Yes.
Which is
first
always
crack
fun.
At everything.
Seriously.
That way.
First crack. And then the last thing, it's a free way to support us. Go on to YouTube right now. Hit the button. It's already on your fucking phone.
Ring the
Type
little
in our
bell.
Sleep Life podcast. Hit subscribe and that little bell so you can see videos like these every Tuesday. Because if you were watching on YouTube, you would see me doing all these hand gestures.
I feel like Mel has become me.
I know. I got it down.
You were like talking loud and you were like emotional, like hands everywhere.
That's right. I'm feeling good. I had my peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Yes, she did.
And I drank some water and we're good to go, man.
You know what?
I love me some
Do
Ash.
we have any of those?
What are you doing?
Hold that thought.
Okay. Kelly just looked over on the left side, which we have a big shelf with a bunch of goodies. Because we do reviews on Thursdays on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. And I'm guessing you're trying to find a bar, huh?
I was trying to find one of the Berry Life protein bars, but
No, you took them home.
No, I left yours here
Oh, I took them upstairs and put them in the cupboard.
for once in your life.
I could use them.
You took them upstairs.
I did. Berry Life, we do love them.
I need
OSLP
them.
is our code for them.
It's
we
fine.
actually have the glow right there because I'm using it now. I'm getting little baby hairs.
Yeah,
Like, it's
our
actually
hair is
right here.
growing in.
See?
I think that's why my nails are growing out so fast.
Yeah, and they're thick. Like mine are
Yeah.
like, look at that. I can like,
Wow.
I know. They're tough as fuck.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. So we want to welcome back on a fan favorite, Ashlyn.
Seriously.
Thank you so much for being on for the
A third time. You definitely
yes.
are a fan favorite.
Yeah, everybody loves you.
Yeah. They all
Very
love how
exciting.
honest.
Happy to be back.
Yay.
Yeah.
And today, are we going to be talking? So we're talking about food No.
No.
What was I saying?
The emotional
Just-
aspect of eating.
Yes.
And disordered eating.
yeah,
That's
like
the
what
word.
it is. What are the red
Yeah.
flags? Yeah, all the
so
things.
we just dropped an episode. By now, it'll be about a month ago. But we talked about triggering sentences
Yes.
and how it looks with like, it kind of goes hand in hand with like bariatrics and then eating disorders, because a lot of the same feelings are kind of there.
Yes. They
So
are.
can you explain to us what disordered eating looks like?
Yeah. So eating is a spectrum like a lot of things. So kind of your average eating. So you eat when you feel hungry, you feel relatively satisfied when you eat, you wait, you do it again. So that's
Mhm.
kind of what we consider average eating, or, kind of what our goal eating may look like.
Mm-hmm.
And then the spectrum moving away from that is more disordered eating. So that may be skipping meals, that may be eating till overfullness, eating when not hungry, eating for reasons other than, hunger.
Mhm.
And then when we get even further away from that, we get into eating disorders. And so that is anorexia, bulimia, and binge eating disorder. And then some of the other ones that aren't necessarily in our kind of magic book of disorders is
Mhm.
orthorexia, which can also be the kind of the obsession with eating clean, not eating certain things, or eating in a certain way.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a more extreme version of some of the disordered eating. It's not quite an eating disorder according to our diagnostic criteria, but the interesting thing too with anorexia is someone with obesity by the book cannot have anorexia, which is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
You have to be underweight. So you have to be of an underweight BMI.
So
However,
is there a
go ahead.
name for that?
no, it's just
Oh.
disordered eating at that point, which is
Okay.
why I want to kind of hone in today that
Mhm.
like the diagnosis in and of itself is not as important. So one of the things that people come to me is they say, I have anorexia and I went to my doctor and they laughed at me, but I read what it is and I'm really concerned about it, but I'm still technically obese. So they told me I couldn't have it, but I'm pretty sure I do because I'm literally not eating anything.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you may not be able to be diagnosed with it because our diagnostic criteria are behind on the times. It
Mm.
still doesn't mean that you don't deserve treatment or kind and caring
Yeah.
hair around that. And
Yeah.
so it is but I think the main thing is that for today in particular is that all of us will have moments of disordered eating. That's
Okay.
a normal part of being human, that we will kind of have days like today's a good example for me. I went and visited 8 bariatric surgeons locally. So
Wow.
once a quarter, I go and I meet usually like 6 to 8 of the 12 to 15 surgeons we have locally.
Mhm.
I just check in with them and see how things are going. And so I didn't get breakfast. My first meal was really late. My lunch was not the best and kind of rushed, and then got
Mhm.
home. I hadn't eaten enough. So like, yes, I didn't plan well enough today.
Mhm.
So I skipped a meal. And so what we want you to do instead of using shame and guilt, which is usually what kind of spirals us
Mhm.
away from that average eating, is that to just use it as a learning experience.
Mhm.
I have meal prep stuff in the fridge. I could have heated a breakfast. I just didn't because I was running behind. I wanted to be on the road by 8 o'clock. I was on the road by 9 o'clock. So
Mm.
I was, even though I was prepared, I didn't move forward with that preparation. And so I don't need to shame and guilt myself about that. I just need to use that as a learning experience to say, okay, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
So how can I make it go better next time? And so a lot of the time it's like self-reflection when we have kind of those rough days, that it's not that I failed or I have no control around food, or I'm just horrible and I deserve, pain, or I deserve suffering. It's more just like what didn't go well there. And if we're kind of reflecting back and there's kind of a pattern that continues that we don't like, and we're not being able to kind of self-process that, that's where we want to seek out some additional help, maybe from a therapist, because the underlying feeling that drives a lot of these behaviors is shame. And often shame comes from trauma. And so oftentimes the treatment for emotional eating is not like getting better control over food. It's actually dealing with trauma and shame, which is what drives the cycle of the behavior.
Okay.
And so if we can kind of get to some of that, then we're more likely to be able to remove some of that shame, because two people can have the same exact day and have very different reactions to it.
Yeah.
I could go to a party and overeat and just beat myself up for it and be like, you should have known better. You should have done this and you should have done that. Or you could get home from the party and be like, woo, I ate a lot and I wonder why. Well, I didn't eat anything all day. And then I went to the party and I ate too much. Okay. So like next time when I have a party, like I know I need to try to eat before I go, or have some snacks in my bag that maybe are more useful for me in these situations, or I'm going to pick protein. I'm going to like not go into it hungry. So that way we use it as a learning versus beating myself up. Because if I beat myself up and then I do it again, I'm just going to be like, well, I'm just stupid.
Yeah. And you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And I have two things I want to touch on. One is about the reflection. So with the reflection, I think people think that you have to be like in your room looking out a window that's raining down and everything, and then I can just reflect on everything. No, you can do it like while you're laying down. You can do it in the car. You can do it literally anywhere you're at. You can reflect. So no, it does not need to be like a place, because I feel like when people put that on themselves, they never do it, right? Because they keep saying, you don't have
to write it down. I hate journaling. That triggers me. Like that is a punishment. You got to sit down, because I grew up where you had to write it like 500 times. You did something. So like I hate reflecting through writing down.
Yeah.
So I'm someone who like I have to reflect by just thinking.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, like as I'm driving home, how'd that go? Did it go well? Did it not go well? Laying in bed, as I'm like, oh, I'm going to wake up with heartburn. Okay, so physical sensation, what's that helping me know? Okay, over it today.
Yes.
Potentially wake up with heartburn. So what do I want to do about that besides beat myself up? Because it's too late to change what I've done. How do I want to do it?
Well, yeah. And you want to be able to solve it. Like, I think a lot of us, like we get into the cycle and we're never solving anything. And it's like, why am I beating myself up and calling myself names? Because normally I call myself names. That's what I do. And so it's like, why am I even doing that? Like, just solve the problem, move on. Just do that.
I go to the I'm not enough.
Yeah, that's what Kelly, you talked about that one. I feel for you on that one, because you are fucking enough. So even you, he's like, it gets me all angst.
Yeah, it's that trauma response type of thing for me. Like I won't be enough.
Yeah.
Type of thing. That's why I have to kind of write it down so I can physically see that like it was a choice. It wasn't a reflection of who I am.
Right.
Because I tend to go to it's a reflection of who I am, because I can't stop myself from eating.
Right.
So I'm this horrible person that's not enough, and this is my punishment.
Right. Yeah. And usually like, and I deserve pain.
Yes.
So I deserve to feel suffering. I deserve to be overfull. I deserve to feel like shit because I am shit. And if I could just control myself like a normal person, then blah, 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 blah.
Yep. And I deserve to gain this weight because I did A, B, and C.
I think I've actually looked at you once and been like, why are you punishing yourself?
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
I think I did. Yeah. Because I'm like, why am I watching you just be mean to yourself?
Because that's how
well, we all do it. Like I do it too. I just do it in privacy. I like close doors.
If I would overeat, I would purposefully eat a sugar-free pudding because it would make me deathly ill. I can't deal with that fake sugar.
Okay.
That stuff. It literally makes me like knife pain, but it would always make me stop. And so I like thought about that and I was like, what on God's like that? That's not good. But in my head, I'm like, well, that will make you stop.
Yeah.
And that's
put a barrier in.
So it's like, so like, that's not a good way of doing it. Like causing yourself physical pain to make yourself stop is reinforcing that idea of I don't have control. I'm unworthy of the chocolate cake or eating what I want. And the interesting thing is sometimes too, what I remind clients is eating may be the best option you got in that moment. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like that is like mind blowing to some people. They're like, what? I could just eat the cake. I'm like, yeah, that's your best option in the moment. Like eat it and be done. But don't let it then cycle into I'm a horrible person. I don't deserve blah, blah, blah. Just be like, I want a cake. I ate it at the end.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, there can be the end to it. There can be the end.
Yeah.
The end. Like I really wanted a piece of whatever. I had it. I feel satisfied. Because sometimes what happens too is if you don't get what you're kind of craving, then you'll kind of go in and I'm certainly, you go and you're like, well, I'll have some apple and some cheese.
Yeah.
Some popcorn. I'll have a couple M&Ms. And then it's like, well, I should have just had
The
ice cream
cake.
cone. I love it.
Yeah. I
it's
should have just
cake.
had
Like,
it. Yeah.
It would have been so much
instead of
better.
beating myself up to say, you don't deserve the cake. You only deserve the apple or you only deserve. Now, on the flip side of that, like, yeah, you probably should try to eat things that are filling and that feel satisfying and are nutritionally dense. But like sometimes we want the cake and that's okay too.
Yeah.
It is okay.
Yeah.
It is okay. And the second thing is, and I know that we're late doing this, but those that don't know who Ashlyn is, can you maybe explain your background, what you do, for those that have probably
We're just
have
so
guessed?
used to you being on. We're
I
just like,
know.
everybody knows you.
Yeah. So like tell them a little bit about yourself because
Yeah,
you are a badass woman and you've done a lot of things.
You have.
So my name is Ashlyn Douglass-Barnes. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Florida. So I'm a therapist down in Florida. I am 11 years out and about a week from gastric bypass surgery. So I had bariatric surgery myself.
Woo-hoo.
And then a couple years after that, I got into actually being a bariatric therapist. And since that, I have created a course for therapists to learn how to work with bariatric therapists, specifically with pre-surgical evaluations, as well as kind of spreading the good word about bariatrics in a counseling setting. So I have a private practice where I have some other bariatric therapists who also work with me. And we are, getting the word out to work with clients. I work almost primarily with bariatric clients in my private practice. And they are like the best clients to work with because they're kind of me. So, it's kind of funny. People always say in therapy, you end up working with people that are a reflection of yourself. I was like, I don't think I'm going to work with a whole bunch of people that are a reflection of myself.
Oh, you like legit did. Like
Yeah,
legit.
I did. Even in the other things that I work with, I'm kind of like, yeah, that's kind of me too. But so I work with clients that are in all areas, preparing for bariatric surgery, already had bariatric surgery, regain, revision, pregnancy after bariatric surgery, infertility after continued infertility post-bariatric, because I have another certificate that's surrounding perinatal and infertility.
That would be tough.
That would be tough.
That'd be so tough.
Yeah, there's so many clients that have the surgery because they've been told that either they'll be eligible for IVF because their BMI was an exclusion for IVF, or that it'll miraculously fix their infertility, which it doesn't always. Sometimes it does. But often if we can't explain it, then we don't really know the cause and your weight might not have been the cause. And so just a lot of disappointment. Now, lots of people get pregnant after surgery who didn't mean to get pregnant.
Yep.
So I also work with that unintended pregnancy really early on post.
Oh man, I'd be pissed.
We need more of you. We need you cloned for every state.
Yeah.
I know. And so by the time this drops, hopefully we will be like super up and running. So 2 weeks ago, at the time of this recording, we launched findabariatrictherapist.com, which I am so excited about because as much fun as I have on these, I had a lot of people reaching out to me and I had to say, I'm really sorry. I'd love to work with you, but I'm only licensed in the state of Florida. So we have a directory. It is free to clients. So if you are looking for a therapist, you can go to findabariatrictherapist.com. Go to the bottom of the page. You'll see all the therapists. If you hit the search button, you can search by license, state that they're licensed in, by insurance that they accept, by the problem which you are having. If you want your partner to be involved, so you want couples therapy, so you can punch all the buttons. You can actually say if you would like a therapist who's specifically stated that they themselves have had bariatric surgery. So you can search by, I thought I wasn't going to put that. And then I started kind of surveying people about like, what would you want to search by? Like, well, I would want to know that the therapist had bariatric surgery. So we added that. So right now we have just a few. We're ramping it up. I'll be at ASMBS at the end of June this month as well, where I get to hang out with you.
That's right. We're going.
So excited.
And hopefully I'll find some more bariatric surgeons or therapists. If you are a therapist who works with bariatric patients and you would like to be listed, I have a coupon code, which we'll put in there, which is a founding member. It's $50 a year for the first 5 years guaranteed.
Wow.
So you have a reduced rate for being a founding member. So it's just a yearly, we try to keep it really low, just covering kind of my costs of keeping the website, the SEO work and networking. But I will... Can we announce that I will be so I will be some form of sponsor. We haven't, I think we're going to do what we talked about, but I will be there and I'll be a sponsor at the Just Be You Awards, which I am so excited for. I literally bought like $1,000 worth of stickers. Like no joke, like $1,000 worth of stickers.
Where are you ordering stickers from, girl?
Etsy, all sorts of fun. So like all of the like fun mental health stickers with our Find a Bariatric Therapist. So come find me, find a sticker. Super fun stickers. So we will be kind of like, our goal is to be like fully stocked and ready to go with therapists by September when we are a sponsor. Yes. But yes, if you're a therapist, come on down. If you're looking for a therapist, we already have several. And a lot of therapists, unlike myself, are multi-state licensed. So they license in more than one state. Unfortunately, I'm so busy with Florida, it would be hard for me to open up to another state, but other therapists do. And certain licenses can have something called the psych pack, where they're allowed to work in like over 20 states. We are working on that. Counselors are actually working on that as well, but we haven't really buttoned that up yet. It's probably going to be another couple of years. But with telehealth, we're working on it.
Yes.
But that is all about me.
That is Ashlyn in a nutshell.
Come on here and talk about all things mental health, because there's so many facets of mental health and bariatrics, and just a lot of like false narratives out there about like, I think one of my biggest things that drives me nuts is obesity is not an eating disorder. So a lot of times clients, doctors, the general public will identify obesity as an eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
Obesity is not an eating disorder.
It's a disease.
It's a disease. It's a multifaceted disease, which calorie intake is a very small portion of. It can be a portion of it, but for the majority of people, there's metabolic diseases, particularly insulin resistance, which drives even cravings and wanting food. So if you have insulin resistance, if your pancreas is not working well, you are going to crave foods. And oftentimes by correcting that underlying condition, the cravings go away. It is not a willpower issue. It is your pancreas screaming at you that you need to eat. And that's why you can't ignore it. And the other facet of that is diet culture. So, right. So people come to me and they're like, I have binge eating disorder. I said, oh, wow. Tell me about it. They tell me about it and they say, well, I come home, I do really good. And I come home and I eat too much. I'm like, well, tell me about the rest of your day. And they're like, well, I do really good. And I'm like, okay, what'd you eat? And they like 3 things. And I'm like, well, of course you came home and ate a bunch. You're hungry. So if you restrict your eating and then you tend to eat more in the evening, afternoon, that is not an eating disorder. That is the world telling you need to look perfect in front of people, especially when eating or in a larger body, that it is your job to be the poster child of health in front of everybody. Wow. And so you come home and you're by yourself and it's like, okay, I don't have to be the poster child for health anymore. Now I can eat whatever I want. And again, that's kind of that. So underlying, like, I'm not good enough is I have to be perfect. So particularly in front of people, I need to be perfect and I need to only eat healthy things so that they can't come back and say, well, you're fat because you eat too much or you eat bad things.
Kelly, is your mind blowing right now? I can see it. I can see it over there.
But it's maybe a little bit. People come to me and I think sometimes it's really hard because you can read the diagnostic criteria, particularly for binge eating, and you could talk yourself into the fact that you have that. But clinically speaking, that's a very, very small portion of the population. And what it looks like when it's really ramped up and really needs like more intensive care is not what people think it looks like. And so it's more compulsory. So I think that a lot of people come in and they're like, oh, I definitely have this. And I'm like, yeah, no, it sounds like you've got kind of the normal pressures around food. And we've just got to kind of work with that. And we probably need to bring in like a medical side to see how your pancreas is doing with insulin. So it's like a super multifaceted disease, just like many diseases. Like diabetes, high blood pressure. It's not just lifestyle. It has to do with, genetics, how your body processes things, your environment. So how you grew up. Did you grow up celebrating with food? Like you can still celebrate with food, but we just may need it to look a little different. It's not that you are never gonna eat that again. I love when people come in for their eval and they're like, I'm never going to eat carbs again. And I'm like, whoo, that would suck.
Right? Fuck
I
that.
mean, that was me.
Bread again.
That one over
I was
there.
like, you're never going to eat bread again. How are you going to have a sandwich? Or they're like, I'm never going to have cake again. I'm like, well, your wedding's going to suck.
Yeah.
Like, tell me more about that. Of course you're going to eat cake. Like, I want you to eat cake, but you may need to eat cake on a full stomach. You may need to have like a full meal. You may want to have a couple bites of cake and then throw the rest out so you don't mindlessly eat it and then get sick at your wedding. That would suck.
Yep.
Yeah.
But like to think that you would have to be punished for the rest, that you would sacrifice that for the rest of your life because you are so out of control that you now need surgery. This is like the thing that people tell themselves.
Yeah.
I'm like, you're not so out of control, you need surgery. Your body doesn't work as well as it could, and we're going to help it to work better so that you don't have to think about this all the time. And you could think about everything else in your life. And boy, wouldn't that be awesome if your life didn't revolve around dieting and food and, what you're going to eat.
Self-shaming.
Yeah.
I mean, I said that when I started Manjaro, I said my brain feels more clear because it released all of those food thoughts that I was constantly having and the constant cycle of I want sugar. Okay, I ate the sugar. Okay, now I'm a bad person. I deserve to be punished for eating the sugar. And then it goes in it just keeps going in that cycle. And when I stopped it, it was like, oh, I have more room in my brain for all of the other shit that I need to be doing on a daily basis. Okay, maybe I'm not a bad person. Just, you're not. Like starts that thinking process. But I mean, I was right there with your clients of saying, I'm never eating carbs again. I'm never eating cake again. And then when those cravings started coming, I was like, oh, this is my fault. I did something wrong. All of those things start cropping up into your brain. Yeah.
And sometimes too, it might just be the surgery type too. Like we didn't impact the pancreas enough. Okay. So we may need to choose another surgery. And it doesn't mean that surgery failed you. It just means that we needed a different intervention. So if you need a revision, that doesn't mean you failed. It means that we might have picked not the best intervention. It's kind of like when we start with metformin for diabetics and sometimes metformin doesn't work and we have to add Januvia, we have to add an injectable, or we have to add more medication, or we have to add insulin. We wouldn't say like the metformin failed you. It wasn't the intervention you needed in that moment.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we need a different intervention or, something else. We need to add a GLP-1 like the Wegovy or Manjaro. And that's okay too. That's not failure post-surgery either. It just needs, again, we just needed another intervention, which is why I love that we're stopping this idea that surgery is the last resort. You have to prove that you've done everything in your power and you have to be next to deathly ill in order to get surgery. That really was the case 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It really was the case even 7-8 years ago. We've really shifted away from that as it's not necessarily a first line, but it certainly doesn't have to be the last. It can be somewhere in the middle, and that's okay. And there may be another intervention years ahead, and that's okay too, because our lives change.
Yeah.
How we function in the world change. Our food changes, like how we get food may change over time. Like we may decide that certain things we're not going to do anymore, or we're going to make them different. Like I have no idea how to tell the future in that.
Yeah.
And so we can't say this is the last and final intervention. So I will be curious at ASMBS. We're really going to have this year, we're going to be talking a lot about GLP-1 and all that and those new meds and kind of integrating that. Really the idea is like we're going to do it all still.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this and this and this. And how do we make it more obtainable? And I'll be curious. I love going to the conferences and see kind of what's up and coming, different types of surgery and that kind of thing. So if you're going to be at ASMBS and you see me, come on down and find me. I promise I am friendly.
Yes, she is.
And I would love to talk to you. So if you are there, particularly if you're a professional too, that would like to, connect with other bariatric professionals, there's not a ton of us probably as a population. So connect with me, come find me. I have a big purple button that says ask me about, findabariatrictherapist.com.
Oh, I love it.
Gosh, no shame in my game. I have like an embroidered shirt. I have a big button, lots of stickers.
I love it.
Where am I professional? I have less fun professional stickers that I got.
Look at that.
Yeah, more fun unprofessional stickers will be coming to the Just Be You Awards.
Yes.
Awesome.
So my question is, so we talked a little bit about binge, what like some people think they have binging disorder. So what does a binging disorder look like? Like, what is it really? Because I feel like, because I use the term that I felt like I binged. I don't think I have a binging disorder, but I definitely have binged, I feel like.
So super good to start by identifying the fact that you can binge. Or eat too much or overeat and not have binge eating disorder. So without cracking open my book, I don't think I will. I'll just do it from memory. I do have it right here though. Just kind of funny. I even have it out. I don't normally. It's every clinical diagnosis you can have in a big book for mental health.
I kind of want that book. Yeah.
The part of the problem with binge eating disorder in particular is that it's super subjective. I want to make sure I use the right word, not objective. Subjective. Okay. So it's eating a large amount of calories.
Okay.
What does that mean person to person? What does that mean to bariatric person versus the average? I don't know. And it also qualifies with that you feel shame or guilt after it happens. It's happening more than a couple times a week for more than a couple of weeks. I want to say it's over a month.
Okay.
Where more time and energy is spent on thinking about obtaining the food, getting the food, and it's more consuming of your life. So in general, diagnoses in general, they have to negatively impact your life in order to be a diagnosis. Sounds kind of weird. There are some diagnoses that may not negatively impact your life, so we wouldn't actually diagnose you with them.
Okay.
Kind of odd. But in this case, that's the clinical, the idea behind the clinical diagnosis. So the problem with it, which has always been a problem, is it's very subjective versus anorexia nervosa, where it's really specific. You have to be underweight by a certain percentage in a BMI. You have to be heavily restricting. It's easier for us to figure out like restricting versus eating too much.
Yeah.
Because what one person may consume as too much is different to another person.
Yeah.
If on average you eat a lot, and that's always what you eat, then that's not binging because you have to eat more. So it's hard in that way to define. And I was a little surprised what we ended up with, because it goes through like all these committees and we have all these meetings and we try to figure out like what it is. And they gave us a pretty vague, which is understandable because it's very hard to define because it's very different person to person.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to get it away from the substance abuse definition.
Okay.
Food addiction in and of itself is a very controversial idea. The literature does not support the average bariatric patient has a food addiction, much to many providers' belief. But that is not what we see in the research. So we do not see this kind of cross addiction where we take the ability away for you to eat and you replace it with like a food addiction down the road. Which is kind of what
I kind of feel like I would say that I had a food addiction
before surgery. Yeah, because we've self-identified as we did. No doctor has diagnosed us.
No, it is not
there's
self-diagnosis.
There's no
diagnosis.
Yeah, so there is no diagnosis.
Yeah, and you know what? Everybody's identifying themselves as whatever the fuck they want. So I'm gonna identify myself as a food addict prior to surgery because I felt like I was. Because with the criteria, we went over it with Dr. Shapiro. A couple years ago, the retreat, and we went over like what a actual addiction looks like. And
we use the substance abuse model.
Yes. So you use the substance abuse model with food. I matched every fucking one.
Yeah.
And so I was I have to, like, this is my vice. This is my thing.
The tough part with that is one, it's subjective. So two, if your pancreas is screaming at you to eat, yeah, you're going to think about food all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can't survive without food, and you can survive without cocaine.
Yes.
So it's a hard thing for us to try to kind of, I think the word that I find, or the kind of definition I find, is prior to surgery, a lot of us end up being obsessed, but it's not because we were in an addiction phase. It was because that was what was going to save us. If we thought about food all the time and we dieted and we tried to figure out, that's what was supposedly going to save us, right? So if I dieted enough, if I thought about it enough, but then I'd fail, and then it's that shame cycle, right? So I fucked up, I'm a failure, like this didn't work anyways. So like whatever, I'm going to go eat whatever I want.
What about the people that, like, I will say for me, like, I didn't really diet much. I didn't yo-yo. I didn't even call myself, like, I wasn't really mean to myself back then. I'm actually more mean to myself now than I was back then. Because I'm more aware now.
Yeah.
That's probably the deal. Yeah. But I would eat when I'm upset. I would eat when I am angry. I would hide food. I would do addict behaviors. Like, I wouldn't even be around people what I ate because I didn't want them to know. So like
to me, that's more societal than potentially you.
Okay.
Because if no one had an opinion about you eating in front of them, you would have ate in front of them.
Oh, fair.
Right. So a lot of that, again, that's that piece that's really hard for us to pull apart. Right.
Okay.
So if we didn't have messaging around, you don't deserve to eat what you want, or that person's thin, so they get to have what they want. They get to go in the bakery and have the cupcake, but you don't. Then some of those behaviors probably wouldn't be there. And that's part of that secrecy. So yeah, some people are like, well, yeah, people use cocaine in secret as well. I'm like, yeah, because it's illegal.
Yeah.
That's why people tend to use cocaine in secret, because it's illegal.
Yeah.
Food is not.
Yes.
So, and that's the hardest part with compulsory, or like whatever the issue with food is, that we can't not eat.
Yeah.
So you can't use sobriety as a model for how to help people. And the thing is that we don't need to, because we actually need to work on what's causing those beliefs, which is usually shame. And we need to figure out if the messaging that we received, particularly as children, is correct. So if you came from a family where you got a lot of messaging around what you were or were not allowed to eat, or you had to exercise, but everyone could do whatever they wanted, or you couldn't have as much food, but everybody else could have as much food. There was something inherently wrong with you because you were in a larger body, then that's what's fueling that behavior, not necessarily an addiction. And so it's hard because emotional eating is not an eating disorder. We all emotionally eat. It's just people with smaller bodies don't identify it as a problem because it doesn't cause a problem. And
it doesn't show.
Yeah. For those who are listening only, because it doesn't show, or it doesn't cause, visual problems, or people couldn't identify that. And so I think that that's some of the messaging, because I think when you label it that, it puts more shame on it. It doesn't feel particularly great when I label it food addiction. I think it makes it harder for people to work on that. And we still want those clients to have surgery because their pancreas might be what's causing the compulsory food thoughts. And if we can fix the insulin, then we potentially can help them fix those thoughts. But it's very hard to pull that apart from all the other factors. And that's why, I caution people. So sometimes people will come in and tell me they're food addicts, and I'll kind of ask them more about it. And it sounds more just like emotional eating. And so what do we do with emotional eating? So a lot of people come in, they're like, I need to deal with this.
Yeah, because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Big deal.
First thing we got to do is figure out the why. What did you actually need in that moment? So what I tell people is, I want you to go home for a week and continue doing what you're doing and check in with yourself about it.
Okay.
When you're going to eat, you're going to open up the fridge. So we find ourselves in front of the fridge. I still want you to do the behavior, whatever you were going to do. But I want you to check in with yourself to, like, what did you need in that moment? Were you lonely? Were you tired? Were you stressed? Is that just the behavior that you normally do before you do something else? So like, I know for me, when I sit down to do administrative work, I have to have a snack.
I do
It's just
too.
in my yes, I have to go have a snack.
paperwork or computer work. I gotta have a snack with me.
Do you know what I think the connection might be from that?
What?
When we got home from school and we had to do our homework, we had a snack.
It's true.
Yeah.
I
So
would
I'm like,
always have a little snack
right.
when I did my homework.
It's
Yeah.
also an avoidance tactic. I don't want to sit down and do administrative, so I'll get up and have a snack. So we just check in with ourselves. Okay, I was lonely. I was angry. I got in a fight. Not like a fight. My husband and I were talking about something like very
Aggressive.
lively.
Okay.
And
Lively. I like
found
that.
when I opened the refrigerator, I literally didn't want to say anything more to him. And I went and opened up the fridge kind of angrily and looked in and grabbed something. And I was like, well, hey there. That's an interesting moment. And I still had the thing. I think I grabbed a cheese stick. I still had whatever I went for, even though I wasn't particularly hungry. I actually needed a break. I needed a break from that conversation. If something's in my mouth, I can't talk to them. And so I had to reflect back to say like, oh, that was interesting. Like what I really needed to say is I need a break from this conversation because it's aggravating me or annoying me. I can't
do that
remember.
all the time.
Oh,
Yeah.
I say it. I say I'm aggravated and I need a break.
No, I do the eating tactic, or I'll smoke a joint, or I'll smoke in my bong.
Right.
Like,
Because guess
while
what?
they're talking, I'm like,
Because what were we told as kids? If your mouth is full,
Full.
you shouldn't be talking.
yes.
And again, that wasn't a shame or maybe it was because you're probably being scolded. But it's an automatic. Your brain is like, you need a break.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be a great
I
break.
literally thought you were going to say the whole line of kids should be seen, not heard. So I was like, oh.
So that one actually comes up sometimes when you eat in secret. So eating in secret, very multifaceted, usually had to do with you weren't allowed to have enough food. And so you were meeting a basic need of needing more food. And so you weren't supposed to have it, or you were restricted on the type of food. Like you weren't allowed to have sweets. And so you get a little bit of babysitting money and then you'd be like, oh, I only have $10. But then you go spend, like you'd get 15 and you'd spend 5 of it on snacks and you'd hide them in your room. So no one would find them.
Oh, I did that.
But again, you're meeting a basic need. Like I deserve to have a little bit of pleasure in food, just like my brothers and sisters or everybody else does.
Yeah.
But I'm not allowed to. So I'm going to kind of make that happen. Also, I find particularly when I work with kind of people who struggle with perfectionism, they eat in secret because they need to look perfect on the outside, that they've got it all together, particularly post-op. So in front of coworkers, in front of friends, everyone gave them a really hard time about having the surgery. And now you're going to eat junk.
Yeah.
Like I thought you had the surgery, so you weren't going to eat that Snickers. So they go home and eat the Snickers, so no one knows, and then they feel like shame, guilt.
I've actually been at like a potluck, right? Potluck style for work. Where like I headed towards some food like to put on the plate, but then like I stopped myself because I was like, fuck, they're all gonna be like, can you eat that? Is that too
100%.
much food? Like the comment. Remember I used to talk about that all the time. I was fucking got so tired of the comments about my food and why I have to do the things that I do. So I just would just try to act as normal as possible.
This is something about Mel that's very interesting though, that I'm listening to this.
Yeah.
Like Mel doesn't want questions. She does not want people to question what she's doing or why she's doing it.
It's true.
That might be if you grew up in a house, and I'm not going to say you did. You grew up in a house where you were either questioned and the answers that you gave didn't matter anyways. It was just a waste of your time because they were looking for an answer they weren't going to find, or nobody asked you anyway. So like it's not, or your like household was a closed one where your house is your own business and no one else should know about your business.
Well, that's 3 out of 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which makes sense. So in our house, curiosity was actually a positive thing. We were supposed to ask about the news. We were supposed to ask about each other's day. And so when people ask me questions, I find that super fascinating. And I want to go back and forth. So that's, again, like some of the messaging we got kids is good. But I didn't grow up in a closed, so we call that in therapy a closed system house.
Okay.
Where no one is allowed to know anything about what's going on in your house. Oftentimes there's secrets or bad stuff going on in your house, which is part of why you're not supposed to have anything go out. So therapy, we say secrets make us sick. So yeah. So
it's literally what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah. It's no one else's business.
No one gets to know what happens behind the scenes unless you want them to know.
And
So
your opinion didn't matter.
Oh yeah. Like if I asked anything, it was so annoying. It was annoyance to them if I asked stuff. Yeah. If I like begged the question. So
I'm starting to realize more about Melanie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you watched it.
That's the thing.
You
is,
got
like,
to watch it go down.
I watched all of the family dynamics within her house.
So you guys knew each other as kids?
Like, we met at 13.
13?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. You guys have known each other like
23 years.
23 years.
Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I watched. That's why I say, like, well, that's 3 out of 3 because I was present for a lot of that.
Yeah, like Kel was there for a lot of things. Like me and her both watched my dad have a heart attack in the house.
I was staying the night.
I was there when the stroke happened. So like she was there for some crazy shit. Like, you know, my mom thinking I was going to hit her, but I was like, I'm not hitting you.
Well, I'm just in
yelling.
her defense, I thought you were going to like WWE
I would never hit my
style.
mom. No.
Like you were taking your sweater off.
No, I would literally, I was walking forward, taking my sweater off. But I knew in my head, I'm like, I'll never fucking hit my mom. So.
I was sitting on the chair and I was like, oh shit, this is happening.
You're like, I was just not. I had to take this.
That's
sweater off.
exactly what was happening. Yeah.
Because I was angry. I was getting sweaty. Because I know what I was raised is like, you do not fuck with your elders. That's a hard line. So like, I wasn't going to touch her at all. I was just taking off my sweater. It was too hot and I'm going to keep arguing.
And you were yelling and she was yelling. And I was just like, oh, this is happening right now. And I'm sitting in this chair and I'm going to be invisible.
I definitely lived in dysfunction.
Dysfunction, yeah. It would make sense if you lived in dysfunction, you would have some disorder eating patterns that would pop up.
And the interesting thing is sometimes when you grew up with no dysfunction, you also have some interesting patterns because you may have had a family that used food as a means to deal with the fact that they couldn't go on vacation or they couldn't do fun things or created patterns around food. Mom checks out Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday for dinner. So you went out every Thursday, every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday. You could have whatever you wanted when you went out. And so you didn't really have a good grasp on health or like what things nutritionally have, because it was like, I'm not going to fight you. You can have, you know, whatever you want. And so maybe there's some of that too, where I have a lot of clients I have some clients who come in, they really don't understand nutrition. And I think it's interesting for me because I was like beaten over the head with that kind of growing up and most of my life. So it's kind of interesting that some of my clients have not had kind of long-term dieting history. And so they really don't know why they get hungry like that. And don't want to use empty carbs. Simple carbs tend to cause more hungry if you eat them by themselves. They don't have fiber, they don't have fat, and they don't have protein in them. And so if you're going to eat one of those, totally go for it. But couple it with something that breaks down a little slower in your stomach. So that way it keeps you fuller a little longer. It's not because simple carbs are bad. It's just that they may not keep you as full and as long. So some of that information might not have trickled down. You know, it might be that you hated going to something, tutoring. Let's say you didn't know how to read. And so your mom had to take you to remedial reading like 3 times a week. And afterwards, every single time, you got ice cream. So your brain connects. If I do stuff I don't want to do, I could get rewarded with ice cream. And so it kind of makes those connections. And that's not because mom was bad or that was a bad thing. It was just she felt terrible that she had to take you to remedial reading 3 times a week. And so she wanted to give you like a thank you for not giving me a hard time for doing this. So let's go ice cream or let's do something that's nice. And that's okay, by the way, if you're a parent who like takes their kid for ice cream, like that's good. It's just like some of those patterns we might have created. And so now the question that we can have to ourselves is, now that I consciously know that, do I want to continue it? Sometimes the answer is going to be yes. Sometimes you do a bunch of stuff you don't want to do. And at the end you get ice cream. That's okay. That really is okay. Now, should we go get like 2 scoops of ice cream every single solitary day? Cause it's the summer. So I had a client that was kind of their pattern. In the summer, every day they go and get ice cream. They knew what the flavors were, and it was this whole thing. And it was like, yay, it's the summer. So we get to have our ice cream. And that's a lot of calories.
That's a lot.
You can continue
every day
to have the ice cream, but maybe a little bit at home at night. It's funny. I've been doing these little reels. I'm trying to kind of figure out the algorithm. I'm not very successful in it. I had like one blow up and I'm like, I don't know why that one did much better than all the rest. I cannot learn it.
Nobody knows.
I'm like, it's the same hashtags. Anyway, so I've been doing these fun little ones where I just show everything I eat in a day.
Yes.
Like, yeah. And so that's been fun. And so it's kind of funny. People are like, do you eat a little ice cream cone every day? And I'm like, man, I have some kind of dessert every day. Yeah. I'm like, have you tried these little ice cream cones? They're delicious.
Yeah.
And they're like 120 calories. They're like the little tiny ones.
Yeah.
I'm like, they maybe have 18 carbs in that if you're super worried about carbs, which I am not. So I'm like, yeah, I just had a full dinner full of yummy protein, and now I'm going to have my little ice cream. So that's okay. But it's a conscious decision that I'm making.
Mm-hmm.
I'm enjoying it. I'm not eating it to the point where I'm physically ill and using it as punishment, because that's, problematic. I am enjoying it. I'm not eating it because I have to, or it's because like I am creating a habit around it. It's just like, at the end of the day, a nice little ice cream cone is good. And sometimes I don't have them because I'm full, and that's great. Sometimes I do. That's okay. So I'm disconnecting some of that emotional beating myself for surrounding food.
How do you disconnect that?
Great
consciously
question.
making good question. So consciously challenging yourself when you have the thought.
Okay.
So kind of going back to like step one is observation, like what did I actually need in the moment? And step two is like trying to figure out if you can actually give yourself that in the moment. And the answer may be no.
Okay.
So if it's loneliness, reach out to a friend, connect on social media with someone, like pull up a live stream or something, like interact with people, go on, Patreon where you're with a group of people, log on to your, support Facebook group, make a connection with a human, go talk to your neighbor. My neighbor was out the other day. I'm just chatting with him. I was like, oh, that's like I felt kind of good to connect with a human.
I hate knowing my neighbors. I hate it. I hate it so much.
She's such
I've had weird stuff happen where my neighbors helped me in some way. Like I had this like weird roommate situation where they lit my house on fire, and my neighbor actually kind of came over with like, they walked over casually to my neighbor and asked if he had a fire extinguisher. Thank God he was home. And he's like, is the house on fire? And they were like, yes. Yeah. So
that escalated very quickly. Yeah. I just have to say, like, I was not expecting
like house on fire.
Thank God. I knew my neighbor who was amazing and like saved the day. And so no, I always feel like that's a safety thing. I always want to know my neighbor and make sure.
I mean, I know I forgot her name, but her daughter parked in my spot. And that's like the ultimate sin in my book. Like, don't park in somebody's spot.
Yes. The ultimate sin,
yes.
Kelly.
Do not park in my motherfucking spot.
So
I paid for that spot.
Is it really hard to park where you live?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. Everybody gets one spot.
That's true. They only get one spot.
And I paid for that spot.
Don't you have like a bunch of people to live with you?
No, I'm the one that have a bunch of people.
She has a bunch of people. I have one spot. I have a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. Nope. Nobody's living with me.
Living with her. I got 7.
Okay,
just me.
Yes, I was going to say, what do you
Or I have 6. I'm the 7th. And we just had Maya's graduation. So there was 2 more here. So I did have a total of 9 people, 1 bathroom going down.
Oh my gosh.
Which is why I rented my own apartment instead of living
here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, nope.
I think that was the universe being like, you need your own place, bitch.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I like found it
for
and got
3
it.
days.
And, I was one bathroom. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Or if you notice, like getting back to your own apartment, like if you get home at the end of the day and being by yourself is what's triggering it, like maybe that's the time to like find something social, like going to the gym, going to a class, like finding a community to be part of, doing something after work so you're not coming home to your big empty apartment that the only thing comforting feels like the refrigerator.
I'm actually very comforted being alone in that apartment.
That's good.
Like that is not a thing. It's
but for those that it is, that's a trick.
Yes. I feel like sometimes it's I don't know, when I have access to the food. That's when it starts clicking. So like if I go to Zach's house and stay the night, I know he's going to have all of the bad food.
All the goodies.
All of the bad food. Because they're in their family, they don't have an issue with like self-control when it comes to those foods. Like they can sit out like a box of crumble cookies can sit on their table for weeks. If I had a box of crumble cookies in my house, gone.
Gone in a day.
Yeah. Like before.
Yeah. I'm a cookie monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
like
I think part of that is like allowing yourself some access to it. So like making up your little, I remember like especially with like Halloween candy, I'll like separate some of stuff and that'll be like my stash.
Yeah.
And then I'll go to my stash and have a couple pieces so I feel satisfied. And then also eat some protein to make sure that I'm full, because if I'm not really feeling that satisfaction, I'm not like meeting that, I'm going to eat more and more to try to find the satisfaction.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that.
Okay.
See, you're self-aware and disciplined.
Yeah.
Because I just
honestly, it's not even necessarily discipline, because at a certain point, it's got to go.
Yeah.
So there are certain foods that I choose not to keep in my house, and that's okay. And there are things that I notice tend to kind of trigger more my blood sugar, is actually what I've kind of figured out. Cheap Chinese food. Fucking love cheap Chinese food.
Yeah.
Kind of that idea that you'll be hungry in an hour.
Yeah.
It's true. And it'll kind of set me off for like a day if I'm not, like, I don't really want to have it for lunch, because then it'll kind of set me off for the rest of the day, kind of like ping-ponging with high blood sugar. I mean, we used to, every Thursday when we lived in Jacksonville, we would go to this one Panda Express. Like it was, again, routine, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of knew what we wanted. And after my surgery, we didn't go for a while because I had surgery. And so it was like many, many months later we went. And shout out to Panda Express, because they have those little tiny bowls.
They do.
Oh, I don't like Panda. So yeah,
I love Panda Express. Cheap Chinese food. Sign me up.
It gets stuck every time.
You're not chewing it enough.
So I will say I have had that happen.
I don't know.
Certain ones I have to get the noodles. I can't get the rice. So we walk in and they were like, "Where have you guys been?"
Oh, they missed you. They knew.
Oh no! And we get back in the hot car. I look at my husband. I said, "We can never come back." He's like, "What? Why?" I was like,
They know us.
Recognized us.
Yeah.
He was like, "Yeah." He's like, "It's like the neighborhood diner where you go a couple times a week." And he's like, "That's fine." I was like, "No." And they even remembered our order, which I was like, "That's crazy," because we always got the same thing.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
They loved having you because they knew it was the right order. There's your
Right,
solid
Thursday,
people.
They made sure it was hot and ready.
Yeah.
They knew it.
Exactly.
Yeah, there was a Chinese restaurant. Yeah. There was a Chinese restaurant by an old house of mine, and we would go at least once a week and get Chinese food from there. They knew our faces. They knew who we were by what we ordered on the phone. Like if we came in, they knew exactly what booth we'd like to sit in. Like it was, it was down to a T. And then we stopped going for a while because I had surgery. And then we went back out and they were like, "Oh, where have you been?" Like, it was like this thing. So like, I totally relate to that, but I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoy being not recognized, but like
Catered to.
Yeah.
It's more of like being seen.
Yeah. Let someone acknowledge your
presence,
you being there, and that you may have some needs and they can meet them. And that's, and it is funny because I really kind of subscribe to like nothing is off limits. So like I will always find something I can eat anywhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little tricky, like hibachi sometimes it's a little tricky because there's just so much stuff. I am always someone, I have had many bills where people have taken things off bills because they didn't think I liked it. That my husband started explaining it from the get-go. She's not going to eat a lot and it's okay. Don't take it off the bill. We'd like to pay for it. She's had bariatric surgery. Do you know what that is? Let me tell you what that is. I'm like, honey, it's
That's cute. I love
tiny
it.
stomach. She can't eat that much. But it would, because one, I didn't want to kind of overeat. So a lot of times at restaurants, because I will get kind of like not feel great. I know what it's like to be at the Disney France restaurant and feel like I'm about to puke. It is terrible. And I also have I can't hear people throw up. It makes me throw up. So I don't like being in bathrooms where I'm like dry heaving because I don't want to make anyone else sick. My husband thinks this is the weird. He's like, so you don't want to dry heave, not because you don't want to dry heave. It's because you don't want other people to hear you drive because that might make them miserable. And I was like, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. So I'm a little more aware, especially the first couple of years, like eating very, very small amounts and then going home and eating a little more. And again, like my brain was like, well, you shouldn't have another dinner and, because we weren't supposed to have seconds. Again, like historical messaging, seconds means, you're eating too much or you shouldn't have that much.
I actually had that thought last night. Zach grilled up some carne asada from Costco,
Mhm.
my favorite one.
Yep.
And he grilled it up, and because I was stuck to my computer all night, and so he was nice enough to like cook it, and then he even cut it up, melted cheese over the top of it, and put sour cream in a bowl for me and brought it to me. I was like, oh, you are a sweet little man.
If that's not love, I don't know what
I
is.
know.
Yeah.
But after I was done, I had this thought of like, I'm still kind of hungry. I should go get some more of the meat. And then I was like, no, you don't need more. I just listened to the second voice instead of like, maybe I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I want more, because I do have better control over my habits now. But I went right back to it.
You did the halt.
Yeah, I went right back to it.
Sometimes it's interesting too, where I'll ask clients like, whose voice is that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, it's so-and-so. I'm like, do we want to still listen to them? Really someone we wanted to listen to begin with. Because it's like that like voice. Sometimes it is our own. It hopefully always sounds like us, but where it came from, that's more where I'm asking. But it is interesting because we just get a lot of like this subconscious messaging about all sorts of things, but particularly around food, there's just a lot of subconscious, like you've had enough, you don't need any more, you're not really hungry. So we're actually sending messages of like, you can't even understand your own body to know when it's hungry or not. So you're like, oh shit, like I can't even trust how I feel. And for a lot of people too, there's a physical part of them. Like for me, I really had a hard time feeling fullness until I was way too full.
Yes.
And so that's probably more of a chemical or a hormonal level of the stomach muscle. Where it relaxes too much and then it'll kind of seize up. And I can't remember what that's called, but essentially bariatric surgery kind of corrects that.
Okay.
But it's kind of a disconnection of fullness until it's way too late.
Yeah. I think I would agree with that.
I would say all of it. I feel like a lot of us, that's what we did. We would just eat until it hurt.
Well, and then if it hurt, you had a good meal.
Yeah, that's actually how we would deter if you had a good meal. Like, yeah, man, I'm so full. It hurts, but it feels so good.
Yeah, like it tasted good.
We joke about, Thanksgiving fullness. Like, you're like, oh my goodness. And it's funny, one time I was trying to explain to a family member about like, why I need to I had a family member that had given me a hard time for like getting up from the table before everyone was done. So usually what I would do, especially right after surgery, is I'd kind of get up and clean because I needed to keep it moving. And I was like, they're like, well, I just don't understand. I said, Thanksgiving, when you're like so full, you just can't sit there anymore or look at anything. I'm like, that's how I feel every time I eat sometimes. And she was like, oh,
yeah.
I said, so that's why I said, it's not disrespectful. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you or anybody else. Like, I just can't look at the food anymore because I'm done. I'm full, and I need to get up and away from it. And so that was kind of an adjustment period, but I also had to think because I was like, oh my gosh, am I being rude? I wouldn't want to, be rude, but I literally can't sit here.
Would you classify yourself as more of a people pleaser?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay.
You don't become a social worker without having just a little bit of people pleasing.
Because I was like, as you're talking, I'm like, I feel like
100%.
Okay.
She won't
100%.
puke in a bathroom just so someone else
that's what I was thinking.
Get sick. That's amazing.
100%.
Yeah.
People pleasing has always been, because it's interesting. This is going to sound like a weird core belief. The core belief, I'm not enough. I have a core belief, I'm not worthy of being on this earth. And that's a very weird core belief about like worthiness. So it's surrounding a core belief about proving yourself through either production, by how good you can take care of people, so you could prove to everyone I'm worthy of being on this earth. I have reason to be here. So I'll show you I'm the best friend you've ever had. So I'm worthy of being your friend. I'm the best daughter you've ever had. So I'm worthy of being your daughter. I'm the best wife you've ever had. So don't leave me. So kind of an idea. And that's a really weird one because sometimes there are people like, so you think like you should die? And it's like, no. It's not like worthy of being on this earth like that. It's about production usually. So if I produce enough, if I lied about my age at 12 so I could get a job because I wanted to make money and be able to do the things I wanted to do. And so I looked like I was 20 when I was like 12.
Like hustling at 12.
Oh yeah, no, I worked at the grocery store. So I got a job. So I told them I was 14 because that was the legal age. None of us had driver's licenses anyways. I looked like I was 20, so nobody questioned it. Nobody asked me for a birth certificate. So I just told them I was 14. It was great. And I started working. I've been working since 12. I love to work. But part of that can be kind of that production, like how much can you prove that you're kind of worthy. So I have to put that in check sometimes. I've definitely gotten much better with that, especially around friendships. Like I will go above and I would be the best fucking friend you ever had. Yeah. So that way you'll never not want to be my friend. So that's an answer to loneliness, right? So if I'm the best friend, then I won't be lonely. If I prove to you that I am worthy of being your friend, you won't go away. And so that kind of comes up. But again, it's just like everything we talked about, self-awareness. Like, am I doing this to people please, or what's the benefit to me? Usually there's a secondary gain. So secondary gain is something that isn't the primary motivation of doing something. It's kind of a secondary. So you can have secondary gain around being sick, actually. So if I'm sick, then people don't think I can do anything for them. So they won't ask me to do anything for them because they believe I'm sick. So there's a secondary gain to not get better. So this is kind of the opposite of that. Yeah. If you think I can do anything for you, you will ask me and then I can feel awesome because I helped or fixed you. The problem with that is that it's super unstable, right? So if we get how we are about ourselves from other people's feedback, I don't know what I'm going to get. I could do something really awesome for you and you could say, that's not enough. I could do something really awesome and you say, well, of course you would have, I'm your friend. And you're like, oh, fuck, I didn't do enough. So it's an unstable sense of who you are because you're only looking for external validation. And so if I know that I'm enough and someone tells me I suck, then I'm kind of able to better be introspective to be like, maybe that person's having something going on over there that has nothing to do with me. Maybe that person just loves taking advantage of how awesome I am. And they figured out this pattern that if they tell me I suck, I'll do even more for them. So maybe I should end that pattern and distance myself. And maybe I don't need to cut them off, but maybe I need to create distance, or maybe I need to not answer or say no, or I'll have to think about that. It's kind of a good when you're trying to have to get back with you.
What about, can you get validation through food?
Well,
I think that the validation just comes from the positive feeling about it. So food does set off a lovely little set of hormones in your brain, particularly if they're connected that way growing up. So if you ate and felt comfort, or you ate to celebrate, or particularly if you ate a certain thing, kind of we say what's the saying we say? I can't think of the word. It's like what shoots together stays together, but that's not the word we use. So essentially, if you connect two things and your brain kind of shoots the dopamine out at the same time, we kind of connect those things. So if you kind of think of cake is a great example.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
We eat cake when we celebrate our birthdays. We eat cake at graduation. We eat cake at people moving on from work, retirement. Yeah. So in general, cake equals good stuff happening. Sometimes funerals, but other than that, like yay, cake.
Who does a cake at a funeral?
Aren't you supposed to have cake at funeral? I don't know.
We've always had cakes at funerals.
Yeah,
I've
never. It might not have anything written on it. Like,
I don't think it's not a cake that someone writes on. I think it's more just like someone brings a fancy cake. So,
okay. I was thinking like birthday style, writing on it. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah, no, nobody's writing like, thank God Grandma died.
So P.S. we do have to wrap up. As soon as possible. I'm so sorry. Time is running.
Someone who could talk for a billion years.
Yeah.
So yes, what is our next thing going to be?
I know. Well, can you do a rundown real quick of anorexia, bulimia? Like, what are the signs? And binging disorders. What are the signs?
So for anorexia, we're going to talk about kind of not necessarily just the idea of being underweight BMI, though post-op you could be an underweight BMI. So literally being in an underweight BMI, not eating either severe restriction, so eating very little, and having an obsession around not eating. So thinking about all the ways that you can avoid eating, how you're going to convince other people that you are eating when you're not eating. And it is then becoming harder to actually eat because then there's a physical thing that starts to happen.
Got it.
Bulimia is where you are kind of going in between total heavy restriction and then either physically making yourself throw up or the use of chemicals like laxatives. So laxative addiction is something that we do see post-bariatric, and it usually starts from a doctor telling you to utilize them, and then it kind of turns into something else.
Is that because they see the weight loss after using it?
Or sometimes just the visual of the stuff leaving their body, and it kind of feels like a clean, like you actually get kind of a little bit of an endorphin high from like the idea of feeling clean. It's a very different looking, but I do want to include that in bulimia. So sometimes it's not, sometimes people say, well, I'm not throwing up, but I'm finding other means to purge. So, and kind of, again, going back and forth, utilizing a lot of thought space surrounding hiding the binging or hiding not eating. And again, a lot of thought and time. Binge eating, like we talked about, again, really taking over your life multiple times a week over a longer period of time. A lot of time spent, a lot of energy spent, consuming a large amount of food, feeling negatively about it after the fact, negatively impacting your life. And the most important thing of all of this, you do not need you don't need a diagnosis in order to seek treatment. If you do not meet clinical criteria for any of these, it does not matter. You don't need to in order to get help. Do not wait until it becomes a laxative addiction. Do not wait until it becomes clinical obesity or clinical bulimia. Sorry.
There we go.
Bulimia until you come to see us. We want to see it subclinical. We want to, so subclinical just means before it meets criteria. We want to see it when you're noticing that it feels really good when you take a bunch of laxatives. We want to, when you're ordering it through Amazon so nobody knows about it, you're taking way too many and you're feeling really positively about something that is potentially causing problems, because that can lead to severe medical issues surrounding your colon, your small intestine. Usually if I have someone come in with that, I've got a couple with a GI because we've got to get you in to make sure you don't have any bleeding because that can be very serious. So similar bulimia, same thing. You can rupture, you can cause issues in your throat. We need issues with your teeth from vomiting. And obviously same with anorexia.
Isn't there a link for esophagus cancer?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to touch on real quick before we let you go, the restricting of certain foods after you have surgery. Okay, and this is beyond. Yeah.
So kind of heading into what we consider orthorexia, which again, orthorexia is not an actual diagnosis and has many different ideas. Some people think of it more for exercise. So that can be like, you can only clean eat. You can only, I knew someone that would bring a scale with them to like weigh out wouldn't get a smoothie because she couldn't weigh out how many of the blueberries there were, how many of the strawberries there were. So again, a lot of think time is spent on organizing, doing, figuring out, not engaging in social activities that involve food. And again, most of the time I'm seeing this subclinical. So they're not going to social events because they don't want people to ask about their weight loss. They're bringing their own food that they weighed out because they want to know the exact calorie count. Their watch if their watch dies and doesn't tell them how many calories they burned, it's absolutely catastrophic because they don't know what their deficit is for calories. Again, if it is taking over your life, so you cannot function at work, you can't function in social situations, we don't want you to live a life like that. We want you to seek out help. It doesn't have to be that way. That is not the sign of a successful bariatric patient that you weigh every morsel of your food. We want you to live your life around food without having to think about it. That's the whole point of having bariatric surgery. So you don't have to think about food the way that we did pre-surgery. And so that would be kind of my takeaway is please seek out help if you need it. Seek it out before it becomes like all encompassing in your life, it's much easier for us to help you if we can get it subclinical versus when it gets into the more severe. But even if it's more severe, come in and see us. Nobody's a lost cause.
It doesn't matter.
Who have called or emailed and said, I'm too far gone.
Yeah, no.
There's no, and it's like, nobody is too far gone.
Nope.
You may need a higher level of care than me, but like, come on down, let's figure that out. Because guess what? I already know the programs locally that are bariatric friendly, that have, we have one that has a binge eating disorder clinic that's specific for that. You're not going to be mixed in with someone who's struggling with anorexia. You're going to have your own group.
Yeah.
And so I already know that. And so, seek that out, get help, do not suffer alone. But also know that a little bit of emotional eating is probably normal. And it's okay. Have awareness of it. Make it a conscious versus an unconscious decision, and keep it moving. Food is food is food. There's no good. There's no bad. We're just eating.
Just eat.
Perfect way to end it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being on, Ashlyn, again, because I'm just so excited for this one.
I could have so many with you.
Yes, we probably will.
We will.
We
We're going
will.
to just have Ashlyn on her own little sub-series.
Yes, exactly. All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening. We love you guys, and we will see you next time.
Bye.